So in my recent video on autistic characters in kids shows, a lot of you suggested other characters from kids shows that are also apparently explicitly stated to be autistic, as well as autistic coded. A lot of these I didn't even know existed, and there were a good amount of suggestions given. So today, I want to look over your suggestions and determine whether I feel personally they are good representations or not, as someone who is autistic. There are many characters I wasn't even aware of here from shows I used to watch as a child, but apparently recently introduced autistic characters. But before we begin, be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And share this video with a friend too if you think they would appreciate this message. Also, if you'd like to see my gaming content, I do stream on Twitch as well. We are currently pushing for Twitch partner over there. So if you'd like to check out my Twitch and support over there as well, that would be much appreciated. But anyway, on to today's video. So the first character I was suggested was Carl from Arthur, who first appeared in the 2010 episode when Carl met George. This episode aired long after I had stopped watching Arthur, so I wasn't even aware the show actually had addressed autism. Carl is a rabbit character that George the Moose encounters while attending a class his dad is teaching. Carl is attempting to complete a puzzle of a train when George meets him. While I don't like the puzzle symbolism so much because it can lead into a certain organization, I do think the train part is actually very good, because a lot of other younger autistic people do find fascination in these sort of things, like I myself was very much into trains at this age too. George attempts to greet Carl, but isn't quite sure if Carl likes him or not, since Carl takes a lot of what he says very literally and also is mostly focused on his puzzle and isn't really making eye contact with George. George attempts to show Carl his ventriloquist dummy puppet, but Carl gets scared of this. Carl's mom comes over and comforts him and explains to George that Carl has Asperger's syndrome, which is an outdated term, but apparently in later episodes that Carl appeared in, they changed the term to autism to adjust, which is actually very good. George isn't really sure what this means though, and goes to Brain to ask about it. Brain explains that his uncle also has autism, and actually won a very prestigious physics prize. George asks if that means Brain's uncle is a genius, and Brain explains that he sort of is, but has a hard time being around other people. Brain tells George that his uncle describes it as landing on an alien planet where people don't really understand you and your sense of humor, and also they seem to talk really loudly, and the kind of jokes they tell just aren't funny to you. Honestly, I really like the visual illustration of this here, and it's a great way to introduce this to kids who may not totally understand it otherwise. Arthur is a show that's always been great about educating kids in a really smart, really wholesome way, and this episode is just the exact same. George learns to accept Carl for just being a little different when it comes to interacting with other people, and he just respects him as another person still. That's exactly what you should see in a representation like this, and it's really cool to see that Arthur did that. Again, I hadn't watched Arthur in years, so I had no idea this kind of representation had even occurred on the show. It's amazing. Another far more recent example that was suggested on that same video was actually Twilight from Monster High. This one is really interesting to me because I never watched Monster High, and I never have actually. I have heard it's a very good show in terms of representing different types of people and from different walks of life to a younger female audience. It actually has some very good characterization and morals and storytelling, but I have never seen it myself. But upon watching it for the research of this video, I actually was really impressed by this. In Monster High, which of course is a show about monster students at a high school, Twilight is actually a boogeyman student here at the high school, and she is actually very shy and introverted due to the fact boogeymen traditionally just live in the shadows. She will often just end up reading alone in the library as a form of escapism for her. And she dislikes being the center of attention and definitely dislikes loud noises, which I and many other autistic people can definitely relate to as well. Whenever I hear a loud noise, I am often very overstimulated and my neck will just tense up. I really do not like loud noises, and neither does Twilight. In the particular episode I watched, her friends play a lot of loud music at their sleepover, which they call a creepover, and Twilight gets very overstimulated and has to leave. After a while, she ends up explaining to her friends that she is autistic and that loud noises really bother her, to which her friends actually accept this and say they're sorry, and apologize and let her know they won't play any more loud music to accommodate for her needs. And that's really what real friendship is all about here. Even though her friends do like loud music, they recognize that Twilight just does not and will get overstimulated if they play it, so they respect her needs and don't play loud music. And that's a really good thing for kids to pick up on at a young age. Another thing about this is that it's a female portrayal of an autistic character, which I think is really important. Because it is a lot harder to diagnose autism in females, there aren't actually that many autistic female reps out there. Although it is definitely starting to get better in that regard now. But when this show debuted in 2013, there really was no explicitly stated autistic female character at all in media. And this show actually does that, which is amazing. I'm especially glad female audiences get this because, again, it's not really easy to diagnose autism in females, even still today. So it's really important for young kids to have this kind of representation at a young age to sort of get an understanding of where they might be at in life. So I really commend Monster High on doing this, and honestly, Monster High just seems to really advocate for a lot of different people from all kinds of walks of life, and that's great. More kids need this in their media at a young age for sure. Another cartoon that was suggested in the comments of the last video is Pablo, which actually stars an entirely autistic cast, and they even co-write some of the scripts together. Pablo stars a 5-year-old boy on the autism spectrum who creates incredible imaginary friends who come to life through his magic crayons. Pablo and his friends go on adventures, and they help him with different situations too. The cool thing about this is that a lot of these episodes and situations are based on real experiences that autistic kids that the show writers knew actually had and described to them. It kind of blows my mind that now we've gotten to the point where an entire show can be basically written by autistic children and autistic adults, but here we are now, and it's really beautiful to see. This show is part live action, part animated, and usually starts with a small live action segment that sort of is the segue into the main animated segment of the episode. The animated segments are very colorful and meant to reflect the autistic kids' descriptions to the writers. Honestly, I think this is really cool, and again, I'm just really glad more shows like this exist now. I never in a million years would imagine we would have an entire show written by autistic people, but I'm really glad we have it now. The colorfulness and creativity of this show is a really good way of introducing autism to younger kids once again, like all the best autistic representation in kids shows should be. The last one I was suggested was actually a character from a show I did watch a lot as a kid. That being Bruno the Brake Van from the new incarnation of Thomas the Tank Engine called Thomas All Engines Go. I watched the original Thomas cartoon quite a bit as a kid because, again, I did like trains, so that was definitely a hyperfixation of mine. Specifically, I watched the stop motion version, and I actually had no idea they had a new 2D animated cartoon for Thomas as well. Bruno the Brake Car is the first autistic character to appear on Thomas, and honestly, that's really great because again, a lot of autistic kids, like myself, really do like trains, and they do like Thomas as a result. One of the coolest things about this is that in the US version, the ASON, or Autism Self-Advocacy Network, actually directly reached out to PBS to help create Bruno, which I think is awesome. ASON, for those who don't know, is actually an organization founded by autistic people and meant to advocate to other autistic people. Because, at the end of the day, the people that are gonna understand autistic people the most are other autistic people. And I think that really shines here with Bruno's character since he's actually a really good portrayal of autism and again, not really stereotypical at all, he feels very natural. Bruno likes to stick to a schedule and is very interested in timetables and time management. And if anything goes awry, he tends to get overstimulated. He always likes things to go exactly according to plan, which is what me and a lot of other autistic people feel like as well oftentimes. And I think probably the coolest thing about all this is that in the British version, they actually got a real autistic child to voice the character of Bruno. And that's amazing because you can see him just be himself as this character, and that's really good. It's honestly just a really beautiful thing to see these characters put out to kids in today's day and age. I never in a million years would have thought we would get a character that is explicitly stated to be autistic in kids media. And it's really beautiful to see for kids all over. I'm really proud of what kids television is doing now, and I hope we continue to see more and more of it. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my letterbox, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube. So you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the otter side. Bye!